he finally gets to me and he goes, and Battier, like, I'm Mr. Perfect. I'm Mr. All-American. Everybody loves me. Brendan Haywood kicked your ass. You're supposed to be the player of the year, and Brendan Haywood absolutely embarrassed you. And I'm sitting there like, Alex, I want to hear like your biggest chew out story. What is the in your entire career?
Oh,
maybe when you're young. Maybe when you're young.
No.
What is the biggest chew out story that you've ever had?
I mean, the number one by far, I mean, I still remember it, was my very first bowl game in college. So again, Urban's the head coach. Dan Mullen is my quarterback coach.
Ooh, Dan Mullen, the one like I've met who was like at your Hall of Fame ceremony.
Dan.
I love it.
Dan went on. He's the current head coach at UNLV. He was the head coach of the Florida Gators for a long time. The head coach at Mississippi State. Like he developed Dak Prescott. Like I mean, the guy like a brilliant, great coach. But he was young at this point, and he was the quarterback coach. He had come from Bowling Green with Urban, and again, they all like. Everybody drank the Kool-Aid, right? Like to Urban's philosophy, right? Yeah. Like of just there's only one speed, man, and it's maxed out. And that was my first year starting, so still, I was like Bambi out on the field. You know, I literally like looked like Bambi. And we made the bowl game, and we went to the Liberty Bowl, and we're playing Southern Miss, and Southern Miss had like a top 5 defense. It was weird. We were the conference, we were the Mountain West champs. They were the Conference USA champs. So these were the 2 mid-level conferences. The champions played each other. So it kind of meant something, right? Like 2 champs playing. And it was in Memphis, and they had a really good defense, and we were a good offense. And so it was kind of this big matchup, and they were fucking good. They like took it to us. Well, they kept running this corner blitz. And like we ran this, we were in spread out formations. Like, I had never fucking seen a corner blitz before in my life because you couldn't corner blitz us. Like the corner, if you played us, the corner was 30 yards away. Like, why would you ever blitz him, you know? And sure as shit, we played Southern Miss, and they kept fucking bringing this corner pressure, like from my blind side, from my left side. And I hadn't seen this before. They hadn't shown it. And you get a whole month to prepare for a bowl game, and they kept doing it. And so we come off the sideline, we're like making adjustments, and I keep going out there, and I just fucking can't see this thing. And I'm like, I take some sacks, I like throwing in completions, and I come off to the sideline after like the 3rd or 4th time. And I got an ass ripping like I've never gotten before from Dan Mullen. I mean, he is spitting in my face, and he is motherfucking me and calling me the dirtiest, meanest shit you have ever heard in your life. Like, just, you are so fucking stupid. What the fuck are you looking at? Like, and by the way, this is a guy, like, Ravi, you were there. Like, yeah. I spent, like, we would play on Saturdays. Every Sunday, I was on his couch, right? Like, and him and his fiance would, like, make me food and feed me, right? Like, I was a scholarship kid, and, like, they, like, took care of me. I was, like, he's in my wedding, and I was in his, like, but, like, he fucking, I mean, I've never felt so little on this sideline. And again, you're the starting quarterback. You think you're hot shit, right? Like, it was my first year starting. We're in a bowl game. Like, again, I've been dreaming about this. And oh my God. And like, you feel like the whole world's watching you, right? Like every guy on the sideline is seeing this. And I'm just, and I remember just kind of wearing it.
How'd you respond?
Yeah. What happened after?
I think it definitely, the thing that I liked about that whole style, not necessarily getting spoken to like that, but like the whole philosophy of that kind of coaching style with Dan Mullen and Urban was like, it did make you fearless. Like, it was kind of like, what the fuck are you doing? Go play, like, let it fucking rip. Like, it didn't even let me think about like there wasn't like necessarily like a fear of failure because it was so aggressive, right? Like the philosophy was like, we were going to like score 40. Like, we won the bowl game, by the way. I think we won 17-0. It was like not a blow, but like that, to my point, like wasn't good enough. 17-0 was like inexcusable that we kept it that close.
Didn't cover the spread.
Yes.
Didn't cover the spread.
Exactly. And so, but like, oh, you're definitely not doing that today with the transfer portal. There's no fucking way.
Well, Alex, before we get there,
be gone so fast.
Before we get there, this is actually just a question because another angle, and then I want to hear Shane's too. But like, Were your parents at the game?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Okay. So I'm just like envisioning, like, because remember, like now that's the other thing is that like parents don't even let their kids like get coached. But
Yeah.
you're what, like 19 years old, right? Like you're not
Yeah,
25
19.
and you're 19. Your parents are, I mean, certainly they're watching you just get smoked
Yep.
on the sideline, right?
Yep.
And that's the other thing is that like they didn't like go do something about it afterwards
no.
of like, right? Like you,
My dad grew up on a farm. Like
yeah.
like the words that were repeated through my youth were "get tough,"
Yeah.
right? Like hell no. Like, if I went and whined about a coach yelling at me, no, they were like, no. He certainly wasn't coming down from the stands to do anything about that. No.
There's like two things, Shane, before we get to yours that are so funny. Like, you know, there's this book that I think it was written by like some Stanford administrator. And basically they were talking about how like one of the hardest things for them now is like the parents come to the like meetings at, like in college. Whereas like kids are talking about their majors and stuff. These kids are 18, 19 years old. And the parents are at the meeting. Like, think about how insane that is. And so they're like, yeah, it's like the kids, it's actually like not as hard to deal with the kids. It's very hard to deal with their parents. They're like, oh my God, that's one thing. And the second thing is same thing. There's this book Michael Lewis wrote called Coach about like his coach in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And basically how he was like life-changingly awesome for Michael Lewis. You guys are all nodding here. You've seen it.
Yeah.
But like basically kicked out of the school later because they were like, no, he's too tough. Like, so I think you like have like real evidence of the generational change in that. And I think it happens in every generation. Like my dad, I'm sure would laugh to think of like, I'm the one who like is the hardo, you know, because he's like, no, like you ain't dealt with shit. Like, you know, look at what we dealt with. And he'd be right.
You had a technical foul last game. All right. You know, let's not forget now. All right. Ravi, Bobby Knight, Gupta. Okay. You did get technical foul.
That's right. You know what? You know, being nice doesn't mean you're a pushover. Shane, what is your biggest chew out story?
I had two. I've only been yelled at twice in my entire life by any coach. And one was in 7th grade when I played football. Okay. So I'm the new kid at Detroit Country Day. All right, 6'4", tight end. Okay, imagine throwing to that, Alex, in 7th grade. You know, and so you know it's like first week of school. You know, football game. You got your friends there, and you know I'm not a showboat like at all. I've only showboated twice in my career, and I've gotten feedback that that's not the way to act twice. And this was one of them. And so it was a 3rd down. We're playing University of Liggett. Whenever we got to the red zone, it was automatic 19 waggle. And that was for me. I go hit the linebacker and they just throw it up. And like the DBs in middle school, they're like 5'5". Like it was crazy, you know, like, so I'm mossing these guys. And so the first touchdown, and I don't know like where it came from. It was the most spontaneous thing I ever did. 3rd down, 19 waggle. I catch it. I go into the end zone and I high step. Like who high steps?
You were inspired by Dion.
And like, I don't know. I never said to myself, I'm going to high step after a touchdown, but like, I was so excited. You know, I got all these new kids watching me. I'm the new kid in school. So I thought I had to like be cool. And so I high stepped. And so the coach of the middle schools was on the staff of the varsity team. He brought me over and I was bigger than him, but he grabbed my face mask and said, Battier, don't you ever do that again. Get back out there and score another touchdown. And I'm like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so like, I think from that day, I never showboated again. I ate a chalupa one time when the Grizzlies scored 100 points because we were a bad team and everyone in Memphis got a free chalupa. And so we scored 100 points. And I ate an air chalupa. All right. And after the game, Glenn Rice sought me out and said, you're too classy. Don't do that. And I felt like an idiot. And so like those are the only 2 times I ever celebrated and got feedback from it. But Coach K yelled at me one time and I'll never forget that. I mean, it was after the North Carolina game, my freshman year. We were number 1, they're number 2. And that was the only game I lost in college by double digits. And that was when they had Vince Carter and Antoine Jameson. I mean, they still play the alley-oop, the best alley-oop there never was. Like
this is the Ed Cota one off the backboard. That was the craziest shit I've ever seen.
Yeah. So like that's how crazy it was. And it was like the most hyped game I'd ever been a part of. And we got our ass busted by Carolina. That film session the next day, man, I had never been in a film session like that one. And Coach K systematically went down the list one by one and gave everybody feedback. Now, you did not want to be on Coach K's bad side when it came to the film study, right? And after this day, I said, I'm never going to be on this end again. And he finally gets to me, and he goes, and Battier, like, I'm Mr. Perfect. I'm Mr. All-American. Everybody loves me. Brendan Haywood kicked your ass. You're supposed to be the player of the year, and Brendan Haywood absolutely embarrassed you. And I'm sitting there like, and we just took it. We just took it, and we went to practice and had the hardest practice I've ever had in my entire life. And that day, I said, I'm never going to be on the end of Coach K's of tirade again. And a lot of guys got it. I never got it again.
Have you seen what JJ Redick says about the best and worst feedback he's ever gotten? It's like kind of gone around Twitter recently. Shane, you've seen it, I'm sure. It's he said that Coach K said to him, "We didn't win the championship last year because you weren't worthy of being a champion. Like, that's the reason we didn't get it." Okay. And he's like, you're out of shape. You're not committed. And you're our best player, and you're not good enough to be a champion. And that's the reason we weren't a champion last year. JJ says, he's like, that is a very intense thing to hear from somebody you respect so much, whatever. And JJ says, he's like, worst thing ever happened to me, but also best thing that ever happened to me. He's like, what do I need to do to be worthy of being a champion? Okay, this is the workout plan. This is the commitment plan. This is the leadership plan. And Duke didn't win the next year either, but JJ put in the work, and it's so crazy. Like, he became like this fitness freak. And, the reason he was successful in the NBA was based on this regimen. And it reminds me of a little bit of what you're saying, Shane, of a well-placed, honest, and searing piece of feedback can change your life. But it requires that specificity and honesty and real stick the knife in, and that I think is the best thing that he could have ever done for JJ. I think.
I agree.
Well, don't you think this is what I was going to say, Shane? Coach K, he does a great job. Even you could tell, when we were with him and it was out in public, and at his press conferences, he's so composed, right? And he's so even tempered. And I think that's what I think people see in view of him, that he's so calm. And I mean, the guy's he's doing Aflac commercials with Don Staley now, right? And it's just he's lovable, right? But and I didn't really know, that's kind of what I thought of him, honestly, before getting to know you and hearing more stories. And then we went back and visited, and no, he's old school. He's old school. At least I get the impression it is direct. And then I'm sure some of these locker room meetings when no one's around, he could cut loose with the best of them. But I think it's interesting because, again, and he does probably a great job of keeping that, for the team only. But it does remind me, Andy Reid is not dissimilar. Andy's old school, man. He's not and again, I think people see, obviously it's been so great lately, but it's a lot of the smiles and laughs and stuff. But behind closed doors, man, he's fiery, man. He says it, the red hair is there for a reason, right? He can be old school, and
what would Andy Reid light guys up over? I mean,
shit.
Coach K was basically just not being tough and not playing hard and being selfish and but mostly lack of thought and effort. You got lit up.
Yeah, similar stuff. Same thing. Just being a jackass. Generally speaking, being not caring, not listening. Right, being disrespectful to the rules. I mean, I've seen Andy lose his shit in a locker room. I mean, I've seen him throw boxes and get intense, confrontational in guys' faces. Certainly, him and Kelsey, a lot of them early on. But I think again, and it's a similar thing. He does this. There's a time and a place for it.
Yeah,
it's not everywhere. He doesn't do it on the sidelines a lot. Yeah. Right. He has, though, him and Kelsey got into it on the sideline, right? Yeah. In each other's face.
Yeah.
But you rarely see that, and again, there are moments for it that are appropriate and some that aren't. But
Ravi, what obviously you're not getting cussed out in the boardroom okay, at the water cooler, at the coffee station, they're not calling you a motherfucker. There are laws against that. People lose, a lot of money with lawsuits. What is the closest? And maybe you have been motherfucked at work. What is your greatest tongue lashing at work? And what was your greatest tongue lashing when you were a hooper in high school too?
So let's see. Growing up, for sure, it would come. It would come from my parents almost more than coaches, and just like from my dad. Like my dad he's like the best guy. He's fun, all that stuff. But he's scary when he was mad, and not scary like he was going to do something, but like there's he just created good fear, of like, don't fuck with me. And so like, I remember occasionally getting on the wrong side of that. And, he just has a big, deep voice, and his face looks so mad when he's fucking mad. And like, you're just like really scared of like, I need to knock this off. The worst thing for me, I told you guys this, was when I like asked him for help when I was in college, and he's like, I'm not going to help you. I'm tired of your bullshit. Like, I don't know if you're going to go like do a good job. So I'm not like putting my name out there on your behalf. And that was like very, very, very hurtful, but I like earned it. You know what I'm saying, to the negatives. That was the worst, like tongue lashing was that. I had a coach in high school who was like very Bobby Knight inspired, who would like break clipboards and, all that shit. But like that, honestly, that was almost more like, I was like ambitious sports wise. So I kind of liked having a hard ass coach. Like it felt like it was more real. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I actually almost kind of liked us having a crazy coach, because it like, I was like, I'm never going to like play in the pros. Like it's cool that he cares so much. I like that. At work, it's interesting, Shane. I'm going to answer a slightly different question than the one you asked. I think I tried as a leader to administer certain feedback. I tried to be very nice externally and very tough in certain situations, And so the thing that I was thinking about when you were saying this was more like the way you described Andy, Alex, of like, externally everyone has a certain thought, but like certain things really are like, no. Like a lot of times leaders will ask me like, how did you deal with this kind of thing? And I'm like, I didn't. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I think I was like intolerant of that kind of thing. Like very few people would come and ask me about like comp stuff. Very few people would ask me about things that didn't move our business forward, because I think the few times that happened, I was so upset and so angry and so visibly frustrated that I think it kind of got around of like, there's only a few things that really pissed this guy off, but like he gets really pissed. So like one time, I'll tell you, somebody who had access to our pay data, okay? Somebody in the finance team had access to our pay data on like what we paid everybody, and came in one day kind of like haughty and a little like, like, hey, look, I need to make more money. And I'm kind of like, okay. And, not quite as respectful as they should have been, as they said they wanted to do that. And I'm like, why? Well, I saw what this person gets paid, and, I am not getting paid like that, and that I need to make money like that. And I'm fucking pissed. Like I am so pissed. And to this point, this guy kind of thinks he like has me in the negotiating, I'm in the weak position. And I'm like, so I wait for him to finish calmly. And then I'm like, are you done? He's like, yeah. I'm like, so I just want to be clear. Your position is that you deserve a pay raise for unethically using the pay data that you uniquely have access to. That's the position that you're taking in this room right now. Like the data that you uniquely have access to because of your job that you're now misusing, you're going to use it to negotiate against me. And that's why you think you deserve a raise. Is that have I understood your position clearly? And the guy at this point is like, oh shit, because like I'm usually pretty nice, and I'm pissed. And he's like, well, that's not, no. I'm like, no. I think I've understood it pretty well, And so I was like, if you'd like to talk about your compensation, I am more than happy to talk about that. If you want to talk about your performance, right? I was like, what we're never doing again is talking about your compensation related to data that you uniquely have the privilege to have access to. And by the way, I would tell you that your performance in my mind has gone down about 5 levels based on your judgment today. You let me know if you still want to talk about comp today. And the guy slinks out. And of course, that like in a good way, like gets around, because it's like, do not do that. And so I kind of come back. I really like this idea of like long fuse, big explosion. And that's like a big thing for me in management is like be intolerant of certain things. And like, you'd be the nicest guy in the world, but like certain things is like, no, NFW, we're not doing that. And it's funny because like my kids will even say, like, dad doesn't yell at us very much, but there's certain things that he just is like irrationally mad about. But I like that the reputation in our family, you know? So anyway, different question than you asked, but that's what came to mind.
I love that. Do you think, I think equally, I guess, as I think about, and Shane, I'd wonder your opinion on this. Like, I guess the reason I felt like I could handle pretty direct, tough feedback it does come back to my dad as well. Similarly, like it just was kind of the mentality and even how I was, brought up in that regard. And again, it was probably similarly, there were certain things like hustle, effort were like the most, the number one thing that pissed my dad off, and a lack of effort in anything, like there was, to your point, Ravi, it was like, it could be explosive, and there was a healthy fear there,
Yeah.
but that's not something that often gets talked about, especially today, right? Like healthy fear.
Yeah. What's that look like? What is healthy fear today in the workplace? For our kids, what's healthy fear? What do young people fear? What is healthy fear? The way we knew healthy fear.
Yeah, it's interesting, Shane. I just was listening about this yesterday. Actually, there was this thing that somebody was talking about Steve Jobs, and they were saying that like he was both like this tyrannical leader and also like the best boss that many people ever had. And they're like, well, how can this be true? And effectively, it was just that his standards were so like exacting that if you didn't bring something to the standard, he was impossible, and he would like fire people in the meeting, and he would lose his mind and whatever. But if you did do amazing work, he was so protective of you and of the work, and he was so inspirational to work for. And so I think the people at Apple, my very strong guess is that they had like some healthy fear of Steve Jobs, but like his approval was so valuable, But so to answer your question of like, where does that healthy fear exist? Like, I hope my kids have some healthy fear of me, you know. I that's something I aspire that they have. I know they have a healthy fear of their mom, like there is like some aspect of that.
Do you think all great leaders have some level of healthy fear, right? And they may get it different ways. Like I'm thinking like Bill Belichick. I think always kind of is like a teacher, right? Like he always seems teaching, but he's very cold and exacting, right? Like if you're not getting the job done, I mean, how many Patriot Hall of Famers have been shipped out of there, right? Like kind of pretty, again, like coldly. And like in some ways that was the fear that he cultivated, that don't get complacent, right? Because I'm not, you could be anybody, and I'll send you packing. But certainly Andy Reid, there's a level of fear in that building. It is his building, right? Like Coach K, it sounds like there was a level, right? His program, a lot of it's certainly urban, there was a shit ton, but do you think it's required?
Well, I don't know if it's required, but it's a common theme. And I just spent 48 hours writing a book, and just about intangible things that make catalysts and are the secret glue of glue guys. And one of the intangibles that we spent a long time on was productive paranoia. Productive paranoia is having a healthy amount of fear, but instead of letting that fear paralyze you and keep you from performing, you use it as fuel and as motivation to actually perform better. Right. And I think that's what we're talking about. I mean, you always say, only the paranoid survive. And, certainly that was the case for me growing up playing for Coach K. I was always paranoid that I wasn't good enough. And I was paranoid that when they said that I wasn't going to make it, and I was soft because I was from the suburbs, like I'm like, I don't think I am, but I better be like tough, to show these people I'm not soft and I can make it, And when people said I was unathletic, I say, well, maybe, but like, I'm going to play so hard that it won't even make a difference. And so, that spoke to me. But I do think that great leaders can inspire that in their people, where the productive paranoia is actually a fuel and can raise someone's game.
Yeah, that's cool language, because Alex, I was trying to think of an example that counters this idea of like great leaders have to, create a healthy fear. I think the only one that came to mind was, I don't know Pete Carroll at all, right? But he has this style that does not appear the same as some of these other people. So maybe you can talk about that. But to me, like, lead by example. Like, does Steph create healthy fear for the teammates that he plays with? Like, I don't know. You guys tell me. Like, what do you think?
I think he just goes about it differently. I still think there's a fear, like, and to that point, like a productive paranoia, like he sets the bar so high.
Yeah,
right?
see,
Like
I
if you're
think
a
high
teammate,
standards.
if you're a teammate, right? Like, and I think he gets down on himself when he doesn't live up to it. But he's like, you can see it. Like if you're not holding up your end, right? Like body language, like there's stuff
you don't
out
want
there
you
where
don't want to let Steph down. So I think the paranoia
see,
comes
that's it.
from
yeah.
am I letting Steph down? I mean, here is one of the greatest all time players.
Yeah.
One of the greatest of our generation, one of the greatest of all time, and like I'm letting him down. Like I'm wasting his prime, right?
Yeah.
And so like the paranoia comes from like I better bust my ass because I'm letting Steph down, right?
I think that so that I think is the insight personally, which is I think the best leaders are people you do not want to let down, right? Like I think that is consistent. And I think to your point, Shane, and to your point, Alex, the way a Steph does that, I think, is by being so like perfect, like hardworking, wonderful guy, all these things, and like a great teammate. It's like, dude, like, like you're going to let this guy down. You're going to like not live up to what he's giving you. I think that's like unique in his style. And I admire the hell out of it. But I do think that, like, I think, Alex, every great leader has crazy high standards, and every great leader does not, the people that are around them don't want to let them down, whether it's from fear or whether it's from something else.
Yeah. But I also wonder, like, we don't know like what Steph's like at practice or film sessions with teammates, like who's to say he's not like Coach K, right? Like like that. It may be in his own style. I mean, I'm sure he's not like MFing guys, but like I'm sure there's times he can be direct. In fact, I would bet it. Anyway, it's funny you said that, Shane. Like when you were talking about a catalyst and like this, I like this idea of productive paranoia. It made me think about, and again, Wright Thompson mentioned the book that Urban Meyer gave out. And it's a book that I still have today that he gave out to the whole college team. And it's called 212. That's the name of the book. And it's a tiny little book. And in his whole talk, as he presented it to the team, was about this, is kind of this productive paranoia. So, and it was degrees, 212 degrees. I should correct. That's probably the actual title. Because at 211 degrees, water is just hot. It's just hot water. Okay. It's really fucking hot, but it's just hot. Right. And it just sits there and it's stagnant and it doesn't do shit. But that last degree, when it kicks over to 212, it boils. And with boiling water, you create steam and you can do a whole bunch of shit with that. Right. You can move trains and boats and engines, and you can do, and it's this book about this exact thing that, again, you can do 211, and that's great. And again, you just have hot water. It's just sitting there. And that last fucking percent means all the difference. And again, it is this little tiny book. And I still remember, I still have it. Right. And it was that, like that him as a catalyst, like a little bit of this was, creating that kind of paranoia that, are you doing that last fucking percent? Right. That is going to mean all the difference in whether or not we become anything as a team, you become anything as a person or a player or whatever you're trying to do. But that all the power is at that last final percent, right? So you think you're working hard. But are you really? And like, I'll never forget it.
And you didn't want to find out.
Hell no. Yeah. So when it made you think like, oh shit, am I really doing enough? Like that last fucking rep, that last, like, you don't want to go, those times you feel like shit and you don't want to go put the work in. I don't know. Anyway, I still, yep.
Can you instill productive paranoia in your kids, or is it a different era? Look, Ravi, your dad told you that I'm not helping you. You better figure it out. You had Paranoia, right? Alex, you had one scholarship offer. All right. I better make this work.
It's so hard.
You
I
know,
think it's so hard to not help
so
your
what
kids.
can you do?
It's
What can we do to help our listeners if they believe in the power of productive paranoia? Is there a positive way? Is there a productive way to instill that in our own kids as fathers?
I think so, but I think it is really hard. And maybe it's hard because all we want to do is be the snowplow to like get things out of their way, right? But the real way, if they know that you're always going to snowplow for them, what would they be paranoid about? They're like, you're just going to go and solve it, right? So I think it requires like the courage, which by the way is fucking so hard to like let them suffer, and let them deal with it. You know what I'm saying, Shane? It's like, and so academically, I know how to do it. I don't know if I have the courage to let it happen. Yeah, I definitely think you can do it. You just have to like actually not make the call on their behalf. And you also have to like let them fail,
I think the other thing is, I guess I try to, as your point of like that, I love the word you use. I hadn't thought of it like that, but like the catalyst, Shane. Right. So like there's that part of just getting the fuck out of the way, which is so hard as a parent because your number one instinct is like protect. And so it's so hard. But I think the thing I try to do with my kids, I do jab my kids a lot. I try to challenge my kids a lot, like in little ways, like fun little ways. But I do subtly, like, I chat like my daughter, like, when's the last time you went and, you wanted the dancing? Like, when's the last time you went and stretched? When's the last time you practiced? Like, like so-and-so's doing it, I do it with both my boys. Like I try to make it a healthy, I guess, as possible. I don't know if I'm doing it well, but that's my take. And I guess I like to see how they respond. Right. And I tried to make them more comfortable with being uncomfortable, if that makes any sense. Like as I challenge them.
Do you do it, Shane?
I jab my kids probably way too much. Right. My kids are not me, and thank God, because I was crazy. I was literally psycho. And another way to talk about productive paranoia is just having a disciplined pursuit of your craft. I always believe that the most we can do, the best we can do is have our kids fail well. Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Have them fail well, and hopefully they get some lessons out of it. They're not always going to get the lessons. You can't force those lessons upon them, right? And that's probably the most frustrating part, because we've all been through fires and the trials, and it shaped us, and as we've come out on the other side and been very, very successful because of it, right? And we know like that's a secret formula. Like there's no shortcuts. It's through the mountain. It's not taking a plane around it, right? And so, as much as we want them to get that lesson and shake them, be like, no, just listen, it's like in flag football. No, just listen. It's 10 yards. It really is 10 yards. Just trust me. This is the way. This is the way. But when you talk to, other parents and people who have kids older than us, every person, to a parent, they say, they get it. It eventually clicks. Yeah. And we're in the boat now. I have 16 and 13, and all your kids are younger, and we worry about, are they ever going to get it? They're going to get it. It'll click. When, where, how? That's the mystery, and that's probably the toughest part for all of us. But it will. They will not go outside one day and be eaten by wild bears, right? They will figure it out.
I think one thing that I was thinking about when you were talking, Shane, about like what I hope my kids feel, and like, I don't know, I'm kind of like making this up now, but I kind of think it's right. I kind of hope they know that I will love them no matter what, right? Like, of course. However, I think that their behavior and their actions will determine whether I like them and whether I respect them. Do you see what I'm saying? Like they have the love no matter what. Like, obviously, I love them. But I kind of hope they think that like the like and respect is based on them, you know? And I think that the best moments that we have are like when they do something that really I'm like, man, I really am impressed. Like I remember you telling me about something Zeke did and you being like, man, he really impressed me. Like he really, I think it was like over the summer in some of what he had done in the way he was a teammate and some of the way he'd played. And you're like, he really showed me. And I just think that feeling of like respect from your parents is so cool. And I think that like I kind of want my kids to feel that delineation of like, yeah, you'll always have the baseline love. We're here for you, whatever. But the way you act will determine whether you get the like and respect, which you want those things too.
And earned.
And earned. There's only, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't respect you because I want to.
Yeah.
It has to be earned, you know?
Yeah, 100%. You know, like I got a random phone call. I'm like, well, what's this number? And my son's English teacher of all people just left me the nicest voicemail. And like, you know, I've read my son's pieces and I love him because it's my son. I think he's brilliant and everything. But he said, you know what, Mr. Battier, I just want to call and tell you that your son Zeke just has an amazing talent for writing. I thought he was calling about basketball. I'm like, oh, you saw him playing. But like, no, for creative writing. And I just love teaching him.
How cool is that?
You talk about like my heart soaring. My heart soared like an eagle. And my boy who has this gift that, you know, I can't even relate to, right? That, oh my gosh, he's not my kid if he's a great creative writer. But like earned. So when I share that with him, I'm like, man, like someone took their time out of their day to commend you. Like appreciate that. You've earned it. And you should be proud of this and
That's
keep
awesome.
on writing, keep going with it.
I think on that, you know, the other thing is I think your friends can help you. Like I was like my kids had something that was I thought they were going to struggle with, and I had this natural instinct to like try to go solve it. And I was actually talking to Alex, and he was basically like, it's like helpful to have the perspective. He's sort of like, yo, like don't fix it. You know, like that it's gonna be fine. And I didn't, and it ended up being like it was like soccer related, and it ended up being that like it was way better that I didn't go solve it because they got to like go through some stuff and it's like better on the other side. But I think sometimes you actually do need people. So I think that's the other thing, Shane, if you're like trying to get to like lessons, I really think that like you have to tell people about the shit that's going on in your life. And you have to have some friends and you have to tell them about it. And you need somebody who's not as close to it as you are. Because if you just talk to your spouse, they're just as close to it as you are.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you need somebody who has a little bit of distance, but still like loves you. And it's sort of like, hey, I actually see this clearly, you know, and the right answer is this thing that you might not have the instincts to do. So I do think like talk to your friends about stuff like that because they see it more clearly than you do sometimes.
Yeah. Going back to chew sessions and getting chewed out, how would you react if your kids got chewed out by a coach? That's not you.
Oh yeah.
It's not you. What do you say? How do you react? You know, obviously it's contextual. If they were, on Instagram during practice, like you deserve it. But like, we all have good kids. Like how are you reacting if you're the first time your kid really gets chewed out and they come home in tears?
I feel like I kind of live this. So my oldest son plays club soccer, like pretty competitively. Like again, Ravi and his boys do as well. And so like we're in the same area here, and soccer is pretty popular here in Northern California. Pretty competitive. And there's a lot, I would say the vast majority of the coaches now here are European, right? Like they've been brought over. There is a market for it in youth sports. So they come over.
A little different.
And so my son's coach for the last 4 years is Scottish. Okay. And right, first off, you can barely understand what he's saying. Okay. But he only like the volume's at a 10 only, like all the time. And there is a lot of feedback constantly, and it's loud and it's barked out. And again, I don't even like half the time. I'm not sure if the kids understand what the hell is being said, but it's firm. Again, we live here. Like it's like the families and parenting, like, again, it's very like everybody's white collar. Like every parent has multiple degrees, like lots of engineers, very educated. And again, that this, it is it's different than what they're used to.
You're the only one on this Riverside with multiple degrees, Alex. Okay, I don't know if Shane
Yeah.
has an extra one, but I'm a single degree guy. I don't know, Shane, about you, but
Barely got one. I barely got one.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's funny, and so like these conversations have come up at times where you get in the car after a practice or a game, and my son is pissed, right? Like over something that his coach got after him, right? And again, kind of publicly, like with the team, after the game or on the sidelines in front of everybody. And so, yeah, these conversations do come up. This coach, like, he doesn't have any kids. He lived like this is his life, right? Like soccer, these kids, his teams is his life, and he puts a ton into it. And sure, could he go about it different ways, but it is very well intentioned. And it is one of those things like, I know it's cliche and we've all heard it, but like the moment you're not getting barked at, right? Like, I do think there's some truth to this. Like it means he's given up on you, right? Like it means he doesn't care.
Yeah, but to your point, like trust and respect are huge parts of this, right?
For sure.
My daughter.
I think there's a lot of ability to like, as a parent, I'm not fucking stepping in. Like you gotta figure, like you're all like, listen, you're gonna have 1,000 different, coaches and bosses in your life, and like you have to. Part of this is like you got to learn how to deal and handle it. Right. Like on your own, and internalizing it. And you got to find the good in these different, in the message, So I think it's valuable, especially like, I don't want to, but like, I think as a young, here he is, he's getting ready to start high school. And like, as a boy, like, I think you can't be sensitive. Like, I think it's hard. It is hard. It's a hard life if you're like overly sensitive, and
Trust us.
I don't
us.
mind.
Life
I
is
don't
hard.
mind getting desensitized a little bit early.
What were you saying about your daughter, Shane?
Yeah, like same thing. She plays competitive soccer, and her coach was Jamaican. And shout out Coach Richie. Coach Richie was awesome, but he was very tough on young girls who are going through puberty and very emotional. And it's funny that like there were times when Ellie was come home and I'd see Richie just like going after her. She's a center back and didn't cover the ball, whatever. And I'm like, you all right? And she'd be like, yeah, like it's just Coach Richie. He's just coaching me. And then now that she moved to Charlotte, she said a couple times where she's coming home where the coach got on her and she'd been little more sensitive about it, and I want to ask her like, well, why were you okay with Coach Richie? But these new coaches, get to you a little bit. And so that's where like the trust and respect from a coaching, from a managerial, from a boss perspective is the gateway to allow you to choose somebody out and give them an earful, because they care and they love you and they're doing this out of respect and trying to make you the best player, the best person, the best worker, employee that you can be, right?
You guys have demonstrated real equanimity here. Okay, like you asked like, how do you react when your kid gets chewed out? I have two reactions. Okay. So one is like to the kid, of course, to the kid, I'm like a good grown up of like, look, you're going to have tough coaches. You got to deal with this, whatever, like all the right stuff. Then like with Avni, I'm like, I want to fucking kill this guy. like my real reaction, like, of course, like if
for sure,
you're so mad. I'm like, who does this person think they are? And then the reason I think, Shane, you're so right is, of course, it comes back to like, well, what do I think of this person? Fundamentally. And do they care about my kid or not? Because it's one thing if they care about your kid. Like if my brother like yells at our kids, like maybe I'd be annoyed for a minute, but I'm like, dude, all he wants is what's good for them. Yeah. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But like if somebody cares about winning a, contest, right? And my kid is a pawn in this story, I'm kind of like, bro, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? And so like, I think that it is funny because like I have to like work myself back down sometimes if that's happening, because like I can say the right thing to them. And Alex, I used to say the same thing as you do, which is like, look, you're going to deal with people throughout your life that are going to communicate in ways you don't like, that are going to have authority over you in ways you don't like, and you're going to have to learn to deal with this. And like, we're certainly not like, we're not quitting. We're not doing any of that stuff. We're going to like, what are you going to do? Are you going to
jumping in the portal?
Yeah, like exactly. But I think that even as a parent, for me, I sometimes have to get like talked down because my reaction is like, I need to go deal with this. And then of course, like, no, you don't. Like, you need to chill out. But I have a lot of like empathy for the parent that like goes and tries to solve the problem, right? Because if you feel like your kid is being treated unfairly, and of course, none of us can be objective about our kids, it's almost like your duty to go and like, protect them from this oppressor.
Yeah.
And then I have to kind of like work myself through that.
My mom, God bless her, her feedback when I was young, and I had tough coaches that were, you know, when I played in the Detroit Police Athletic League, former firemen and policemen, and they had to be tough because my teammates were tough, right? And so a lot of tough talk. And so my mom just said, "Look, you don't want them to talk to you that way. All right, don't give them a reason." I'm like, all right, I won't. I'm not gonna give them a reason to lambast me. So like, part of it was I tell people all the time that uh, as I got older, that was my mentality. And I had one job. My one job was to make my coach's life a living hell every second I was on the bench. Right. And how do you do that? You stay out of the line of fire. You do what you're supposed to do, and you do it so well that they can't live without you. Right. And so, with that mindset, I did not get chewed out too often. So but it sounds a little hollow when I say it to my kids, right? Like, don't give them a reason to yell at you. Shut up, Dad. Let them, I'm tired of you talking about your 13-year NBA career. All right. I'm not a professional, It's like every time.
I think one thing that's crazy for me though, guys, is I feel like the feedback in sports versus the feedback in like everywhere else, it's like the biggest barbell distribution I've ever seen. Like to me, youth sports feedback is like, it's actually harsher than what I received at 11, 12 years old. Like it's much more serious than what I saw at 10 or 12. And the school feedback or like the non-sports feedback is like nowhere compared to where it was before. You know what I'm saying? And so it's that to me is the craziest thing. I'm sure I've mentioned this to you guys before, but it's this article is very affecting to me. That was one time, it was in the Economist magazine. It's called 1843. And the subject was, why are American kids so bad at math and so good at swimming? Okay. That was like the premise. And I was like, like, I wonder what that's about. And it's this British guy who wrote the article. And he basically is like, look, when I go to my kid's math class, or like if I see my kids like math homework, if they don't do it well, basically the teacher's reaction is like, give them an easier and easier problem until they can do it, and be like, you're so great, and then like keep on giving them problems that like maybe they can do. And he's like, and so like my kid doesn't like actually get any feedback of like, yo, this math is not where it needs to be, you need to work harder, whatever. They just like keep on lowering the standard to like get it to where they can get good feedback. And they're like, the thing about swimming is the same like American enthusiastic spirit exists. There's a British guy kind of saying it from the outside of like, you can do it. Let's go. You got it. He's like, but like the thing about it is you can't lower the standard because you'll fucking drown. Like the water is the standard. You know what I'm saying? Like and he's like, that's amazing because you have this unforgiving standard. So you can be enthusiastic. You can do all this stuff. But ultimately, you got to teach the kid to swim because otherwise they'll drown. And I think that to me is so interesting as I think about like feedback, which is the thing that happens in sports is there is the existence of a high standard even today in like youth sports, and even higher standard than there used to be. But in the rest of like childhood, from people that are not the parents, a lot of times there's just like no high standard. And I think that is bad. Like that, I think is really dangerous. And so like the article I liked so much was this idea of like the real competition is the water. Like there is an objective standard. It is high, and you need to like learn that as a kid. And I actually worry that a lot of kids aren't learning that right now outside of sports.
And where does that fall? Who should teach them that? Schools, the parents?
I mean, it's got to be the parents at the end of the day,
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I think, like as you're saying that, like, again, my son just took this placement exam for high school, right? So he's going to this private school, so they make you take an exam, and it was like fully comprehensive, and you get your national scores back, and then you actually get your regional scores back. So like for just the Bay Area here, and again in the peninsula, right? Like so, like
Yeah.
one of the most affluent areas in the world, one of the best like Palo Alto School District is like
Yeah.
off the charts, and his national scores were like phenomenal. Like he did really, really well. Like really lucky he's a bright kid and like cares. But his regional, like this area, we're like, yeah, just kind of a guy. And there's a real problem here in high school because there's like so much pressure on these kids that they think, right, like if they don't get into the Ivy League, and there's even there's like real problems, right, real mental health problems here with some high school kids at some of these very, very elite schools, and the pressure they feel that if they don't, right, like if you don't get into the certain college the rest of your life, obviously is taking it to an extreme. So it's funny, like I think, and this is kind of where I do view like the parenting thing, and I don't know why this hit my train of thought, but like I do feel like there are things like when my son is being a knucklehead, I can get fired up. However, I do hope that if and when shit really hits the fan with him, that I absolutely don't, that I swoop in at that point with nothing but support and love, right? Like, cause like it's going to happen, and I want them to know that, right? Like hopefully again, not to right. And to know the difference. And so again, I do come back to like the jabbing and like the healthy fear, and being again, a catalyst as a parent, or a coach or a boss, and then knowing the difference as well, right? Like again, like kids need feedback, but at the same time, right? Like I think whenever it does become serious, that you hopefully like that, like, and our whole, this is like the yin and yang that we talk a lot about, demanding and supportive, right? Like that's where hopefully you step in with the love and the
Is
support.
that pressure probably the bigger reason why it's hard to give our kids feedback?
That's the fear.
Feedback?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Is it the pressure, or is it something else?
Well, I think you're scared that you'll cross a line, right? Or your kids, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's like I mean, you don't even allow yourself to think about causing that kind of stress, mental stress on your kid. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
like, I think that's a big driver. I also, Alex, totally agree with you. And as you were talking, I was thinking like, yeah, like, and it depends on the kid, right? It depends on the person. Like,
totally.
I would imagine, I mean, I know this when I was growing up, like my brother and I were really different, and we were parented differently. And I think in a good way, like, I think my brother needed less like ass kicking, and he probably needed more like, hey man, like chill out. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
And it also like evolved over time. So I think it does depend. And then Shane, I guess I think it's like almost incomprehensible, like to be fearful of putting on additional pressure on a kid who already is, like that. That's like scary, because like there's nothing worse than thinking you're making it worse for your kid in that dimension. I think there's probably even more than that too, which is this natural instinct to like protect because you love them so much.
Yeah.
But I'm sure part of it is this fear of adding to the baseline pressure that they might already feel.
Yeah. I feel that with my son. I'm his coach, and so I try to choose my words very, very carefully. And Alex is your young quarterback. Gets higher and higher and higher in terms of level of play. You become much more aware of that, much more, and it's really hard. It's really hard. Am I perfect? No, but I'm glad I'm at least thinking about it and aware of that.
I think you guys also have it harder. Sorry, Alex, I was going to say, I think you guys have it harder on a few dimensions, but certainly in that your profession was so visible and so obvious, and frankly, like the fact that there's some fame associated with that. I think there's much more obvious pressure that could get created through that than like, you know what I'm saying? Like in our house, like that just doesn't exist in the same fashion. Like there might be, there's pressure from other sources, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
Well,
I was just wondering, like Shane, like you meant, like, I know you're doing a little coaching with your son, like, and I think about this all the time in this exact regard, like taking it, being careful not to cross a line, but like your son, the back of his jersey says Battier, right?
Yeah.
Like you're there. If you're on the
Yeah.
bench or in the stands, like you're tall, man. You stick out, like, like you're recognizable, like, again. And like, I'm sure he hears hey, that's Battier's kid, or like, like, I struggle with it and how to handle it. It's not something that I grew up with. So I don't know. Is it something I'm
Yeah,
curious how you,
I try to impress on him that in a lot of ways you're lucky that everyone's trying to go at your neck. You think about Bronny James, all right? Bronny's never played a high school game where someone's not trying to kick his ass just to say, hey, I kick LeBron's son's ass.
Yep.
And so, two things happen. You get an armor, and you get used to taking everyone's best shot, and you have an amazing confidence that everyone's going at you because of your last name, no fault of your own. And I took their best shot, and I still performed well. I still won. Right? That's an amazing confidence builder. Right? You can take on the world. All right, or it can overwhelm you. Right? And so, like I try to tell myself, like I can't go out there and play the game anymore. I'm done. So this is your journey, and you're going to own it. And it's going to be very different from mine, and that's cool. That's great, and that's exciting. I'm there to support you. I gave you a 500-pound rock you got to carry around every time you walk in the gym, that they'll know who you are and expect their best. All right, because they want to say they kicked my son's ass, and so again, but he's lucky. That's a fail safe mechanism. Like, there's nothing fatal if a guy bests him in basketball.
Yeah.
But he understands the crux of competition and hunger, and he gets to see it. And if he had the last name of Jones or Stevenson, he wouldn't get that same competition every single day. So part of me feels bad, but part of me also says, good. All right, what are you gonna do with it? Barbecue or mildew? We always say barbecue or mildew. What are you
I
gonna
think
do?
there's a lot of wisdom there, man, to like take it to the gratefulness side. Because as I think about pressure, like I just feel like it's a coin, and it takes you one of two sides. And again, you do the poor me, why me, right? Like fear thing, or you're the grateful for it, right? And I think it's such the healthier approach to pressure, and like anxiousness that can come with that. And so I like that. I like that a lot, right? Like that, you're unique, and in some ways it's lucky.
I actually, in my heart, think that one of the things that I agree with you, I think that your repositioning of it as to have the gratitude is correct, but it's not easy. You know what I'm saying? So I like that. I also think, to me, I think professional pressure or personal pressure, they're just different than like pressure that moves onto your kids, because it's so much more intense. And so that is one thing where, like, my kids have pressure from lots of sources. I think one thing that I admire about both of you guys is you're dealing with your kids having pressure from a different source than what we have. And I do think that the visibility of that, they just have to grow up quicker on that one dimension,
Yeah.
And so I think that you guys, it's not the same as professional or other pressure, because it's about the thing we care about more than anything else,
Yeah.
And so I think that that's something that you guys have, that is different.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To all the parents out there, remember, and I say this anytime I'm on stage or corporate speech, everyone wants to know how to raise a championship athlete. Okay. 70% of all kids quit sports before age 14.
Yeah.
70.
Yep. That's crazy.
The number one reason why they quit is the ride home from their games. Yeah. So if you remember nothing else from this episode of Glue Guys, just remember to shut it on the way home from practice and games. And
Bob Rotella, remember your boy? We told us, what's the best thing to say to your kid after a game? Nothing at all.
Nothing.